your gardening tip this morning with Ben Getz. We're talking about compost and how to manage compost in your garden, and also why it's important to have compost in your garden. Ben, you've done a very neat job here. What do we need to know when it comes to compost?
Well, the first thing is you've got to understand having compost in the garden is absolutely essential. I mean, it's a brilliant way of recycling what's normally called garden waste into a very nutrient-rich medium for the plants to grow in, and it's really the secret for having healthy plants. The most important thing is obviously to have the right ingredients in the right proportions. For me, it's almost like baking a cake. You've got to get it just right and then it works. So we've got our dry brown, we've got our green wet, and we've got our manure, and then, as I've said, water. So dry brown is, of course, dry brown leaves, even dry grass. Green wet would be green grass clippings, green leaves, old leaves from your vegetable garden. Manure, there's horse manure or cow manure, even chicken manure is quite readily available. Nice to get that in there as well. And then sprinkling of water on every layer to make sure that the compost remains moist.
Okay, so that's the basic recipe for a healthy compost heap, right? In terms of managing it, so what do you need to do?
In terms of managing a pile like this, firstly we need to build it properly. So just to keep it simple, we could say equal proportions of dry brown, green wet, and manure, and give 5 to 10 centimeter layer of each, and then layer it up and make sure that you sprinkle lightly water at each level.
Always top off the heap with more dry brown and a last sprinkling of water.
Remember that compost is being made by microorganisms. They're digesting the ingredients into compost. And in order for them to be there, the environment needs to be warm, dark, and moist. We check out the compost to see that it's hot. We've actually got a little rudimentary thermometer here, and it does two things. It helps us to actually check the temperature of the compost.
Yeah. Wow, that is really hot. Wow.
Yeah. So the other purpose for having this in there is to help make sure that air is getting into the compost. So the way that we build it is to allow a lot of air. It needs to be quite spongy, but this helps to also make sure that air is getting right into the center of the compost. Once it's totally cool, which normally takes 2 to 4 weeks, but normally around 2 to 3 weeks, then you want to turn the compost to get some new heat in the pile. And if we do that every 2 weeks, so you build your compost, turn it after about 4 turns, which is 2 months, you could have compost.
Ben, thank you so much. That's a whole lot of information.
Great pleasure.
And there you have the perfect recipe to manage your very own compost at home.